Well, welcome everyone. Happy to have you here. Happy week after Thanksgiving for those of you here in the US, and happy almost Christmas. It's that time of year where things just fly by. Have you all seen that meme that says, "What day is it? What's going on? I probably should eat a vegetable and make some money." Have you all seen that meme? Like, that's very relatable to this time of year. Well, I put in the chat box, tell us where you're from. Referrals. Let us know where you are in case we have referrals for that area. What you most want to learn today, I do have content prepared, but I also want to see what questions you guys have. And then I'd love to know if you've been in a webinar with me before. I recognize some of you from past webinars and also the class. And then I do see new faces as well. Real quick, if you would turn your cameras on, I would love to see your faces. That's just energizing to me. And awesome. We have people from all over the place. Glad to have you here. Yay, South Africa. I went to South Africa twice last year and want to come back. I see a couple of you. Spain, amazing. We have people from all over the place. One of my goals is to speak internationally, so I'm just going to pretend that this counts, even though I'm on Zoom in my own house. How about that? All right, well, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. And I do want to introduce myself real quick. Rodrigo, if you could give me permission to share screen so I can get my slides up there. And today we're going to talk through how to call old leads without being awkward. My background with this is I've been calling leads since 2006. That's when I got into phone sales. And that's been in a lot of different settings. I was a college recruiter, then I was an inside sales agent on a real estate team. Now I have my own referral company. So leads come in through there and I call them buyers and sellers. So I've really done inside and phone sales since 2006. And I know what it's like to have leads that I think to myself, I have no idea who this person is. How in the world do I start a conversation and not be weird, right? And then also, how many of you are on a team and you've inherited leads? So maybe someone left your team and then you got their leads and you are in that spot of, I don't know, where do I start? This is a little awkward. So we're going to talk through that today as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. And I encourage you to take notes. You'll remember things better as you write them down. And first, I want to put up this reminder just to keep you legally safe. You've probably seen this lots of times before, especially if you've taken classes with me. Essentially, don't call, do not call lists. I think that's pretty clear. And make sure you follow the TCPA laws. All right, so today we're going to talk about how to call older, colder leads. Then I'm going to show you a program where you can learn more just real fast, and then we're going to go over questions and insights that you've had. So the first thing you want to do when you're going through a batch of older leads is decide who to call first. And there's a couple ways that I personally like to organize this. So one thing that I'll do is I'll look at, well, who was the most recently active on my site? So obviously this will depend how the lead came to you. For example, if I manually added a lead to my database, I'm probably not going to see when they were last on our website. That top bullet point there primarily works if they came to you as a website lead through your website. So I would recommend starting there. You know, if somebody was on your website yesterday, it would make sense that they could be a hotter lead than someone that hasn't logged on in a really long time. I'm curious, how many of you have systems where you can see who was most recently on the website? Let me know in the chat box because I can't see all of you. There's a lot of screens here. Good. Yeah, it looks like quite a few of you. Yeah. And I found, again, that really only worked for web leads that came in on my website. So that is a fraction of the people. So we'll talk through also how can you figure out everyone else? So how do you know who else to call outside of that? All right, so let me get the slides back up here. All right, so we're going to look at who was on the site most recently. Then the next thing that we want to look at is, let me get this back up here, is the most recently due tasks first. So what do I mean by that? If you're anything like me, I've had times where I set future tasks. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Where you set future tasks. And then life happens. I'm sick. I'm out of the office. Maybe you had a surprise trip. Maybe somebody took you on a trip. Who knows? But for whatever reason, we fall behind on our tasks. Well, I used to think if I called the oldest tasks first, and let me quit sharing so I can see your faces. Do y'all know what I mean when I'm talking about tasks? How about this? If you don't know, would you tell me? Because somebody watching this recording, not everybody's live, they might wonder as well. Yeah. Oh, we'll talk about fake leads in just a minute. I see that in the chat box with web leads. We'll talk about that. If I forget, remind me. We'll hit that when we get to the end with questions. Yeah, so tasks are action items. So say that I'm talking to Kelly, and Kelly and I agree that we're going to touch base in a week, and she's going to talk to the lender between now and then. And then for whatever reason, that task falls behind. Maybe I was out sick or something like that. I used to think, let me start with those oldest tasks first because they're the furthest behind and I don't want them to get further behind. But what I realized is they were already pretty cooled off. Have any of you ever experienced that where you call and in your mind it's an important task and you call them and they're like, "Wait, who is this? What are you calling about?" So I learned if I called the most recently due tasks first. So for example, if Kelly was due 3 weeks ago, I actually would do better to call the people due last week first because they're still warmer. And so I'm going to start there. Now, certainly we don't want overdue tasks. I'm not promoting that we have overdue tasks in our system. And I know from doing this for so long that life happens sometimes and we get behind. So that's what I would recommend next is start with your most recently due tasks first. And then the last option, if you don't have recently active on your site, maybe you haven't really been managing tasks or you're all caught up on your tasks. The next thing I would say is just pick a portion, any portion. So for example, let's say that you have 500 leads and you realize, wow, I couldn't tell you the last time I reached out to these leads. In fact, would you in the chat box give me just an estimate of how many older leads you think you have? Just a guess. And there's no judgment here. I'm just curious what we're working with. So 2,800, 154. Tanya, that's great. 1,200. So I'm seeing hundreds for the most part. Excuse me, guys. I will try to mute if I know that's about to happen, but sometimes I get a surprise cough. Okay, so it looks like hundreds, if not thousands. So what I would recommend, and by the way, that's probably most of you. Most of you probably have a whole chunk of cold leads. You don't know when they were last on your site. You don't have a task. They're just old. That's what I'm hearing is the majority. Okay. So what I recommend in that case is pick a chunk. So let me give you an example of what this would look like. Let's say that today's Monday. I typically like to start this strategy on a Monday, but you could start it any day of the week of your choice. But let's just say it's Monday, for example. I might say out of my 2,000 overdue tasks, I see a lot of you in that situation. With my 2,000, well, not overdue tasks, just old leads. I don't know who they are, haven't talked to them in forever. What I learned is if I attempt to call all 2,000 of those before I call them a second time, the calls are so spread out, I'm not creating urgency. So the better thing to do is to pick a portion and say for this week, Monday through Friday, I'm going to focus on this small group of leads and I'm going to make that my priority to call them every day until they pick up until Friday. So basically like a Monday through Friday strategy, a daily call. And let me give you a strategy for that on the screen. All right, here we go. So what we're looking for is that strategy. Now you'll see on the screen, it says call 6 dials in 6 days. And I just referenced 5. So let me share with you the mentality there. If I have a brand new lead come in that I've never talked to, it just came in today. It's a hot lead. It's not a cold lead. It's a lead from today. I'm going to call them 6 times, not 5. And that's because that first call is no voicemail. I just want to see who picks up out of curiosity or calls me back out of curiosity. And then calls 2 on will get voicemails. With older leads, I just start with a voicemail on the very first call. Does that make sense, everyone? The way I'm explaining it? Okay, perfect. But I wanted to put this strategy up here for those of you that have new leads coming in. But the idea is that we're calling these leads 5 to 6 times in 6 days, no more than 10. Ideally, it's 5 calls in 5 to 6 days. That's really what we're going for here. But we don't want it to go beyond 10. And the reason I say that is some of you might start the strategy on a Thursday. Well, you're not in the office potentially Saturday and Sunday. So that's why there's a little bit of variance there, but no more than 10 days. And the reason for that is studies have shown, Harvard studied this, and they found that if you just call a lead 6 times in 6 days, they're 90% likely to pick up or call you back. I think that's pretty incredible. How many of you would like to have 90% of your contacts pick up or call you back? Uh, who here is thinking, gosh, that right there explains a lot to me about my business? It's wild to me how many people are struggling in business and then they implement this strategy. You don't even listen. I'm a big fan of working on your skill. That's like my whole job is helping people improve skill. So I'm not against working on your skill. But the point is, even if you don't improve your skill at all, and you just get really good at your follow-up and calling leads 6 times in that 5 to 6 day window, you will have more success than you're having right now. Isn't that encouraging? Even if you don't improve skill. Let's also improve skill, but just get better at calling your leads 6 times in 6 days. I had a team come to me and they were about ready to nix a lead source. Who here has had a lead source and you thought, I don't think it's working, I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to quit paying for this lead source. Now, sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes we need to get rid of a lead source. But with this particular lead source, it was web leads. And they were like, these leads are terrible. We're not going to work them anymore. But when I audited their system, I realized they are only calling these new leads that are coming in between 1 and 3 times. And that's it. So I said, before you throw out the lead source, maybe that is what we need to do. But first, let's work it with the strategy that's proven to work and start calling them 6 times in 6 days. Let's start there. And then if we do that for a while and it's still not converting, we'll get rid of the lead source. Do you know they went from a 3% conversion and they doubled it up to 6% conversion in just a couple months? This was a lead source that they were going to throw out. And all that happened was they started calling it more consistently and they got closer to that 90% pickup rate. So who here is feeling a bit encouraged? Hopefully this is encouraging to you. Yeah. And I want to go back up real quick. When those comments came in that your web leads are fake. Now, I will say that sometimes people put in a name like Mickey Mouse. No, okay. Mickey Mouse was not on my website last night. So I do want to address this real quick though. What would you do if you didn't want information and a thing popped up that said you had to submit some information to get beyond the screen? What would you do if you weren't interested at all? You would just close out, right? So I want to encourage you that even if you're getting names that aren't real names, now, if they put in a fake email and a fake number, there's not much you can do about that, right? But what I found in my experience is I might get a fake name, but they are putting in a real number or at least a real email, one of the two. And what that means is somebody behind that wanted information badly enough that they submitted their information to get it. So that is actually, here's how I want you to think of it. It might be a fake name, but it is not a fake person or a fake lead. That is a real person with a real need. They just didn't give you their actual name and number. Does that make sense? And so I want you to just change your thinking on that. I want you to change your thinking on that. It's not a fake lead. It might just be a fake name. All right. Now, to encourage you, only 40% of agents call 1 time. So again, even if you aren't skilled, even if you're new and you say, I don't know what I'm saying on the phone yet. This is my first webinar I've ever attended in real estate. Just remember that most agents only call leads 1 time. So if you actually just call them to that 5 to 6 times in that 6-day window, you already are going to have a higher chance of success. If you have a skilled person not in the activity, you can beat them just by simply being in the right activities. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the voicemails and why to leave a voicemail. So with voicemails, what it does is it sets you apart and it makes you professional. Who here, raise your hand, who here has gotten those calls where it's just a repeated number showing up on your phone and they never leave a voicemail? Who's been getting those? Especially before the election, I was getting more of those. Yeah. What's your perception when you're getting a call with no voicemail? What is your perception of that? Yeah, Genevieve is giving me a thumbs down. Yeah. It's my opinion is if it's important, you're going to leave a voicemail. When there's no voicemail, I automatically assume that you're spam, right? I don't think I'm the only one, just judging by you nodding your heads and thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah. Look at the chat box. Scam, spam, don't call back, ignore them, solicitation. It wasn't important. It wasn't professional. Do y'all see why it's important to leave voicemails? Now, for the majority of lead sources, we're going to leave a voicemail because that's what makes us professional. And it also gives context. Now, there is a right and a wrong way to leave a voicemail. So let me give you a couple tips. Now, I will say in the class Mega Lead Conversion, we spend a whole hour just on how to craft a good voicemail. We have 30 minutes today, and it's one small portion of this whole thing. So I'll give you a few tips and just know we go deeper in that in Mega Lead Conversion. So going to voicemails, here's how to craft a good voicemail. The first thing is you want to make sure it's short. 30 seconds max. Shorter, even better. So you want it to be 30 seconds or less. You also want to change up where you put your name. So let's say that I'm calling Peter. And every time I call Peter, I say, hey, Peter, it's Anna. Next voicemail. Hey, Peter, it's Anna. After a while, especially if I'm doing this daily, that can get old, right? So what I've learned is it's better. Maybe one voicemail says, hey, Peter, it's Anna. And then the second call, maybe I'll leave the voicemail first and then put my name at the end. So that could sound something like, hey, I wanted to let you know interest rates have come down, which means that homes are more affordable now for those using a loan. Call me back today so I can help you. Oh, by the way, this is Anna. And so I'm putting my name now at the end. That's good for people. I don't know about you guys, but I have a bad habit of letting my voicemail stack up and then I'll go through and listen to them all in a day. Anybody else? On my personal phone. I don't do that on my business phone, but on my personal phone, right now I have like 10, 10 unread texts and like 4 voicemails. And I don't know why I have no urgency. But when I do listen, if they all started with, hey, Anna, it's George. Hey, Anna, it's George. I'm just deleting, you know? So change up where you put your name. That's another tip on leaving a good voicemail. The next one, and this is huge, put a star by this in your notes. Give a specific callback time. So if I'm calling Lisa, I might say, hey, Lisa, it's Anna calling from She Knows People Realty. I'm calling to let you know we just sold a home in your neighborhood and there's more buyers looking to live where you live. So call me back today by 5 to see about helping them find a home. Something like that. It's wild how much it makes a difference when you leave a specific callback time. I've had people that I've never talked to. I don't have any rapport with them from a live conversation, and they will call and apologize that they didn't call me by the callback time, which I think is rather entertaining. But that shows me that it works. Okay, it really works. How many of you did your taxes by April 15th? Maybe you waited till the last second. Who here's a last second person? You're like April 15th, midnight. That's me. And I have an accountant and I'm still at the last second because I turned my stuff in late. And so this is like true confessions webinar today. But the point is because there was a deadline, we got it done. If there wasn't a deadline, who knows? Who knows how long that would have taken? So you want to give a deadline. So, hey, Mark, this is Anna calling from She Knows People Realty. Hey, I wanted to give you great news. The interest rates just dropped, which means there are more buyers that can afford to buy homes. Call me back by 5 o'clock today, Mark, so we can help find a buyer for your home. My number is blah, blah, blah. By the way, this is recorded. So if you're hearing this and thinking I didn't write fast enough to grab that voicemail, you will get a recording from today. All right, the last piece, and this is the biggest, well, I don't know which one's bigger, the time or the value add, but the last 2 bullet points on the screen are the 2 most important when it comes to leaving a voicemail. And you probably heard me just demonstrate it, actually, but you want to give a value add. So a bad voicemail would be, hey, Lisa, it's Anna from She Knows People Realty. Call me back today. Well, there's no context, right? And if I'm leaving 5 voicemails that all sound like that, who are you and why, right? But what I instead want to do is in each voicemail give a value add. So an example of a value add might be a 5-star customer review. Maybe you just won a multiple offer against 6 people. I don't think that's quite the market we're in today, but were that to just happen, that could become a value add. In my market where I live, Selling a home in less than a week would be a big value add because our days on market has gone up, right? So I might say, hey, Lisa, this is Anna from She Knows People Realty. I want to let you know, we just sold a home in 7 days. The average in our area is 62. Call me back today so I can help you save time on the market. Call me by 5. So I'm giving a specific callback time, and I'm telling her when you call me back what you're going to learn when you call me back. Does that make sense, everyone? Good. And yeah, Denise said, do you change your value add every day? Yes. Yeah. And what I like to do to keep it simple, if I'm just batch calling, meaning I'm calling a group of people, maybe I say I'm going to work on this list of 100 this week or 50, whatever it is. Monday, they're all going to get the same voicemail. Tuesday, they're all going to get the same voicemail. That'll be different from Monday. And so basically, I create my Monday through Friday voicemails, and then that's just what it is for everybody. Now, I don't do that if I'm calling leads that I'm currently in relationship with. I'm talking specifically, I'm working to make contact. Got it? So what you want to think through is what are the value adds people would want to know? And some of that will be market specific. Some of that will be about you or your team. And if you're new, remember your brokerage is your team. When I was brand new, I didn't have stats to talk about, but I talked about the team that I joined. I talked about their stats. And your brokerage, if you're a single agent, your brokerage office is your stats. So you could say we have an X amount of homes that have sold this year so far. Things like that. Okay. Danny said, what if you don't know if they're buying or selling? I like to just say you expressed interest on our website, or you expressed interest in moving. Just keep it general. And actually that leads me to the next slide. So again, voicemails, keep it variety of name placement, 30 seconds or less, with a specific callback time and a value add. What are they going to learn when they call you back? One quick thing I want to say before I move on is I had a listing in our highest priced area where I live. There's a neighborhood called the Cliffs, and it's truly mountainside community. These are these homes are 4 times our regular priced homes. Everybody wants those listings. Well, one of them came off the market and I called it, having come off the market. Now, do you think I'm the only agent who called this listing that came off the market in a neighborhood that's 4 times our average price? No, there's no way I'm the only agent that called them. Well, several months later, I got a voicemail. Never talked to her. She never picked up when I called her, and I didn't pick up when she called me. I got a voicemail that said, "Hey, Anna, you may not remember me, but you called me consistently a few months ago, and you're the only agent who did, so come get the listing." I literally got a come get the listing for our highest priced neighborhood in our area off of my voicemail strategy. So it 100% works. And I say that to say you might not get a call back right away. It doesn't mean it's not working. They might call you later, but they are getting it. All right. And then the next piece here to getting into old leads without being super awkward is how you open that call. Now, I teach this call opener in the class Mega Lead Conversion. Some of you are in there. So what I want you to notice is the bolded pieces here are what's a little different than what we've learned in class so far. So this slide is how you open a call. So we have their name and my name, gratitude. We're not going to say, how are you? It's going to be, I appreciate you're taking my call today. And what I like to add in for an older lead is, hey, I know I'm calling you a little out of the blue today, because they're already thinking it. Have you ever called a lead and they're like, who are you? What's this about? Well, I found if I just addressed it on the front end, I eliminated that, because one of us is going to bring it up. Let's let it be me. So, hey, I appreciate you're taking my call. I know I'm calling you out of the blue today. And then a while back, you expressed interest in moving. So this addresses that question of what if you don't know if they're a buyer or a seller? Listen, I don't want you reading all the history notes of these cold leads. That one, it could mess with your mindset. Two, their situation is probably different. How many of you didn't think you were moving and then suddenly life happened and you moved? So if I read all the history notes, that could actually really affect the way I approach a call. So I like to just keep it general because it works for everybody. So, hey, a while back you expressed interest in moving. I'm curious, what had you thinking about moving? And now I don't have to know if they're a buyer, a seller. You could also say a while back you expressed interest in real estate. You could do that as well. But the key things here are, I appreciate your taking my call. I know I'm calling you a little out of the blue today. And then a while back, you expressed interest. What had you thinking about moving? Now, what I find in calling older leads is sometimes they'll say, oh, yeah, that was a while ago, but I changed my mind. Two options. I wouldn't say that you need to ask both of these, but two different follow-up questions you could use is, hey, I really appreciate that. You know, when you were thinking about it, Kelly, what was motivating you to move back then? What I find is a lot of people, and you're going to have to trust me on this until you do this yourself and you gather your own evidence. But what I found is a lot of people who said, oh, yeah, we changed our mind. It's more just that they're overwhelmed. They don't think it's possible. Um, Here's the thing, guys. Most people don't have to move. There are some people that have to move because of a job transfer, a financial change, somebody passed away and they need to sell the house, right? But a lot of people, it's a, I want to move. And when you want to move and you don't have to move, it's easy to procrastinate. How many of you have a closet in your house that you've been wanting to organize for a while and you keep procrastinating? I'm sharing that example because that's my real life this week. I have a closet that I need to organize. So if it's a want to but don't have to, it's easy to just procrastinate. So you're going to hear people say things like, oh, yeah, I just decided to put that on the back burner. I changed my mind. And hey, I appreciate you being honest with me. When you were thinking about it, though, what made you want to? Or you could say, hey, I'm hearing you changed your mind. I'm curious, what was plan A? How'd it worked out? What would you have wanted to do? Think about those of you that just said you have a closet you want to clean out. If I said, why do you want to clean out that closet? Like, what makes that important to you? And we talked about that for a minute, you'd probably go clean the closet. Yeah. So it's that idea. It's that idea. So that's how you get into the conversation and start conversation rolling. And here's the thing, we're not looking for every single person to stay on the phone with us for 20 minutes here.
What's
I'm
your
looking,
Summerfield listing? 3.6.
oh, somebody's off mute. Rodrigo, if you could help me out, make sure you're muted. So what we want to do is make sure we're keeping more people on the phone than previously. So if previously 20 people hung up on you, let's get it to be where it's only 15. That's a win, right? So that's the expectation here. I'm not setting the expectation that everyone will want to engage with you, okay? We're just looking for increased conversation. So let me real quick tell you about a program where you can learn more about this. It actually started mid-November. We have 2 sessions on demand, and then you can join us live for the rest, and then I'll open it up for questions. We'll actually move quickly. Put your questions in the chat box because we're going to have to move very quickly here. But what Mega Lead Conversion, which is the class I teach, where we teach methods like this and a whole lot more, it used to be 3 hours a month. Now it's 6 hours a month. And that looks like some extra help calls. So later, to part of why I have to hang up real quick is we have an extra help call in just a little bit for that class, where it's basically a mastermind of what do you want to talk about. And you can read the screen there, take a picture if you want, so you can remember all the details, megaleadconversion.com. But that started mid-November. You can sign up, but the window is closing. So and don't worry that it started before. We have a lot of people that are behind just because of Thanksgiving and all that. That's totally fine. That's why everything's on demand. I'm personally in a class that started September 30th, and I've not watched one piece of it. And I'm not worried because it's on demand and I know I have a window of time to catch up. So honestly, that's not at all, not worried about it. And yeah, the recordings of this class that you're in right now will be emailed to you, and the recordings of that class, the actual class, will be sent to you as well. If you're signed up, they'll be in the client portal for on-demand watching. All right, we're gonna have to move very quickly because of time and other meetings on the calendar. So the class, Danny, is 6 months long. And again, everything's recorded for on-demand replay. You'll have 8 months of access for the 6-month class. Any other questions real quick? I could probably take 1 or 2 more, and then I have a Zoom I have to hop on. I'm so glad y'all joined me today, by the way. Great to have you. Is it Jin? Is that how I say your name? Jin Baines? You have the best facial expressions. You're like front and center, and you kept me energized this whole call. She has really good facial expressions. I love it. All
Um,
right, yes, I would text them if they don't have voicemail. Just make sure that you're allowed to text them. And that goes back to the TCPA laws. Just make sure you're permitted to text them legally. And if you have questions about that, just talk to a local attorney. Yeah.
um,
Rick, I'll answer this. This will be the last question due to time. Rick says, any hints on what to say to past clients that you've only sent calendars to? I like to simply just call and say, hey, I was thinking of you and we haven't talked in a long time and I wanted to check in and see how life was going for you. I don't particularly make it about real estate, that first follow-up call. I just make it about getting back in touch. Um, what I have learned is if I ask them how's work, they'll usually ask me back how's work. So that kind of helps sometimes if I'm like, hey, how's work going, Rick? They'll frequently ask that in return, and that can help. And then if they've already moved, I see that question as well. Remember, people you move on average every 7 years. And so if they've already moved, let that be a lesson to keep better in touch. But hey, they might have referrals for you. Just establish a relationship for the next time. Be the agent the next time they move. Okay. All right, and you'll get an email with us, usually within 24 hours, depending on how fast we get it from Zoom. I do need to hop. I'm actually late for a 2:30 meeting. I'm 2 minutes late, so I gotta go. But you'll get a recording from us, and if you have questions, just reply to that email once you get that to us. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.